Hello! Okay, so dropping in to share a quick little video here talking about this magical forest and grid work. I'm here in the Black Mountains in North Carolina, in the Appalachian Mountains on the east coast of the United States, and in particular this is Black Mountain, Mount Mitchell. So it's a sleeping dragon actually in these mountains, and I'm sitting here. If you can kind of tell, this is actually a spring that comes out from under the earth, and that's out here. So this is a really sweet and sacred spot where land and fresh water flows out from the mountain and tends to the entire forest floor below us. So grid work. Dropping into grid work. This is a message that wants to come through from the elemental kingdom today. Primarily this is coming from the gnomes and the elves, though there is some fairy medicine that's being woven around us right now to energetically enhance the experience of those who are called to watch this. So grid work. What is grid work? When we talk about grid work, we are talking about an energetic platform. Essentially, we could say platform. So the grid of the human body is our meridian system. The grid of the earth is her ley lines and her energetic meridians. Essentially, the earth has meridians just as we do in our body. So as does the moon, as does the sun, as does Pleiades and Sirius and your emotional body, your mental body. There are many different grids that an individual could really be assigned to work on. So what we're going to be primarily talking about today are those who are called and assigned to work on the planetary grid and the nature grid. And I'm going to give you some kind of hints to how you know if that's you or not. So there can be some misconceptions around grid work because there are some people who do grid work on the galactic plane and they, speak in light language and they have more visualizations and they kind of go really far out. That is not a mandatory necessity, I guess you could say, for one to be doing grid work, especially if you're here to work on the planetary grid, the physical body of Gaia. So something that happens for those of us that are grid workers is once you start to really open up your third eye, you'll start to see the sparkle, the light, the sacred geometric structures that are connecting everything. And our duty here as grid workers is to simply show up as empty vessels. What does that mean? A lot of times people ask me, well, how do I work on the grid? How do I work on healing the planet? How do I this? How do I that? I'm called to these places, right? Simply by you being called to a certain place means that you have the codes in your DNA to heal, to transform, to activate, or maybe to cleanse a certain location that you are being called to. So you don't have to do anything other than show up. Show up clean and pure. Show up sober. Show up in your space where you are 100% present and able to shift the energy as it flows through your body. So I am a grid worker who works on the planetary and elemental grids and also the grids of the inner earth. So as I was driving up to this mountain today, which was about an 1.5-hour drive, a whirlwind of experiences of energetics that I was brought to this mountain to shift was flowing through. And that can flow through as things like being dizzy, as things like having moments of being really hot, of things like having moments of getting these flashes of, what's happening, flashes of fear, things like that kind of roll through you. And if you are not present, or if you are numb, or if you are on something, you will not be able to be aware of what's happening. You'll be numb to it, and you won't be able to then clear it. So the work that I essentially did on my way up to this mountain was a lot. I kept having to stop, I kept having to clear, I kept having to move the energy, shift the energy, burping, yawning, shaking, things of that nature, snapping, clapping, aikidoing, releasing these energetics that have been kind of twirled around this mountain was a piece of the journey of my way up here to work on the grid. So literally, it's just showing up and moving the energy as it moves through you. And sometimes, depending on where you're at and what the energy that you are called to move, it can be rather intense to the ego, right? And it requires us to really, when you really start doing grid work, it requires you to face your fears, face your unconscious fears of these things moving through your body, or of leaving your body, or of, kind of going far out and not returning, all of these egoic fears that, we all face. And some of us choose to face them and move through them and transmute them. There were times, though, and this would be the opposite on the way up here, that the ego said, turn around, you have to go home, you can't be here, it's not safe, yada, 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 we're gonna die. Even a heart attack kind of ran through my field, like, you're having a heart attack. These stories of the ego that come up in the process of doing your grid work. So it requires an incredible sense of grounding, an incredible sense of presence, an incredible sense of love and joy and trust to really start working on the grid. Because it requires you to move energy through you and transmute that energy through your body. So if you are called to work on any grid, whether that be the etheric grids, the planetary grids, the emotional grids, the mental grids, the galactic grids, any grid at all, you will have a call in your being to be somewhere, to go to a certain forest. The best thing you can do as a grid worker is to show up. That's it. Because the codes for working on the grid are in your body, in your DNA. So just like our DNA is operating consistently, we don't have to think about our cells reproducing each other. We don't have to think about those things. It's automatic. The grid work is automatic so long as we show up and transmute the energy that's moving through us. That's it. So on the flip side, and I'll just talk about this for a moment because I'm getting a ding from this phone that the battery's at 10%. So those of us who are called to work on more of the astral grids or the galactic grids, those individuals don't actually even need to go anywhere because all of the work that they're doing is outside of their body. It's on the astral plane. So they astral travel. These beings will astral travel to those parts of the grid to work on them that way. So you kind of get in touch with, what do you resonate with the most? What are you called to do? Where do you find you're most connected? What divine beings or what spirit beings are you connecting to? Are they beings from Pleiades? Or are they the fairy and elementals, the gnomes, the elves, the sirens, or the angels? Are you called to be in forests or cities? Is there a place on the planet that your heart has been saying, I've got to go there, I've got to go there? Because you hold codes for the grid of the healing of that part of the planet. And the best thing that you can do is show up. So this goes into an even deeper conversation about really transcending these limiting beliefs that say we can't just get up and go travel. We can't just get up and go out and follow this call of spirit within us, which is a lie. Because I've personally been doing it for the last 2.5 years. Just literally going to different forests and working on the grids, clearing and releasing the energy and awakening the elemental kingdoms. Because a lot of the elemental kingdoms have been in hiding. Various, kind of all types of things. In this forest particularly, there's been a lot of meth labs and a lot of deforestation and logging. So those are very jarring, energetic things happening that are destroying the land, and so the elemental kingdoms went into hiding. Stopped weaving their magic in the forest. The ecosystem of the forest essentially started to suffer, because gnomes maintain the ecosystem of the forest.